Sports Stories does not contain descriptions of violence, sexual content, or explicit language. Sports Stories is suitable for all audiences, except Celtic fans who I guess can listen if they really want to. Born in 1971, Christopher McGee came up on the somewhat less than hardscrabble streets of the San Fernando Valley, north of Los Angeles. As a youngster, Geeter, as he would eventually come to be known, would play imaginary games of football, basketball, or baseball in his front and backyards, complete with imaginary teams and with rosters of imaginary players, all recorded diligently onto notepads. This is not uncommon for many of us that love sports. Well, maybe the part with full rosters and keeping accurate records is a little much, but you get the idea. The part of that very few of us can say is he pretty much became that guy. Geeter would play his way into an all-CIF basketball player in high school, a captain of an NCAA volleyball finalist in college, the voice of pro beach volleyball, and now studio host for his favorite team, one of the greatest franchises ever, the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan. One that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with DENNY Lennon. Welcome to Sports Stories. We're excited to bring you part one of Life is Sweeter with Geeter as Laker broadcaster Chris McGee knocks down the three. Nobody's ever announced the introductions of players like Chris McGee. Geeter, as he is known, would set a new standard as the MC of pro beach volleyball. That's how I came to know Geeter. In the late 80s and early 90s, I had been an MC, or really a stage announcer, for women's pro beach volleyball. As I had left that behind, Geeter was just getting started with the AVP Pro Beach Tour. Geeter took things to a whole new level. He broke new ground with his style, using his own stream of consciousness, social references, and humor that, combined with his knowledge of the sport and his great charisma, had crowds across the country going nuts. One job led to the next for Geeter, who learned to always say yes, and he now holds down the position of host of the Los Angeles Lakers studio show. Beach volleyball originated in Hawaii, but the 2-on-2 game really came of age on the shores of Santa Monica beaches. In 1960, the first Manhattan Beach Open was held and was won by Mike Bright and Mike O'Hara. 1960 was also the year the Lakers would debut in Los Angeles. Moving from Minneapolis, they brought their 5 NBA titles and their nickname to a warmer climate, where they would become one of the most popular franchises in the world. Seems like Minnesota also lost out on the greatest college basketball coach ever in John Wooden due to the weather. Anyhow, Laker first-round pick Jerry West out of West Virginia would team with the great Elgin Baylor, then add in the ever-entertaining and groundbreaking play-by-play man Francis Chick Hearn, and the Lakers were on their way. Playing in the Memorial Sports Arena next to the Coliseum, the Lakers were the best team in the NBA during the 60s, not named Celtics. The Boston Celtics, with the absence of free agency, kept together an all-star lineup and won all 6 NBA championship series the two teams played against one another in the decade. In 1968, the Lakers acquired the great Wilt Chamberlain, who, incidentally, had once scored 100 points in a game. 100 points! I mean, Kobe Bryant could only score 81 with his best effort. Anyhow, a few years after picking up Wilt from the Philadelphia 76ers, the Lakers, in 1972, won an NBA record 69 games, stormed through the playoffs, and won their first championship in Los Angeles, culminating with a 5-game triumph over the New York Knicks. From that 72 team, a team I was lucky enough to watch practice as an 8-year-old, Wilt and teammate Keith Erickson were frequent beach volleyball players, a sport which had done its own share of growing throughout the 1960s and was on its way towards becoming popular enough to support a series of professional events by the mid-70s. The two entities of beach volleyball and the Lakers had moved to and were thriving in the culture of Southern California. And so it was in 1973 that our guest today was born. The greatest beach volleyball MC of all time, the studio host of one of the greatest franchises in all of pro sports, was just starting to make some noise. Well, now that I've dropped Brighton O'Hara, the 16-time NBA champions, the Indiana Rubberman, Mr. Outside, Mr. Inside, Chicky Baby, the Boston Celtics. Wilt the Stilt, the Black Mamba, the 1776ers, the Knickerbockers, and, that's right, Chick, he's a heartbreaker, he's a three-point maker. Geeter, it's time for your shot. From the 7428 studio in the shadow of LAX, here is part one of a three-part interview with Laker broadcaster Chris Geeter McGee. Please note that this interview with Chris McGee was recorded January 23rd, 2020, 3 days prior to the death of Kobe Bryant and 8 others.
I love how your foot's up. Okay. 3, 2.
Shot. Bucket. Bucket. It was already down.
I love that you crushed that. That's you, buddy, right there. Man, MV.
That's a good start.
MV. So we've decided to go with the video podcast as well.
Love it.
And
Love it.
thus
Cool.
your shot gets recorded, you see. And
I
now
appreciate
you have
that.
some talking to do
Yeah.
to my cousin, our mutual associate, Mike
Yep.
Boley.
Michael Boley, one of my dear friends.
He didn't knock down his shot, Geeter.
Which, by the way, bothers him for sure.
It bothers him a lot. He's called me a few times to say
He wants to reshoot that.
not only reshoot that, but the whole interview. He says, I'll redo the whole interview if I get another chance at that. And I said, well, you look good. We'll clean it up.
What was Michael's best sport? Would you say it was baseball?
He was really good in baseball. He
Volleyball?
was particularly good in volleyball, in tennis.
Mm-hmm.
He had his most success, but I think basketball. I think if if the right
A lot of us
situation-
growing up in that time, basketball was
Yeah,
our sport.
that was
Volleyball was just kind of like
that
you
was
did
my
it
thing
after.
too.
Yeah.
I think if he would have been in the right situation, like we went out to College of the Desert
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, and you know who the coach was? Gar Foreman,
Really?
the general
Yeah,
manager of
of
the Chicago
course.
Bulls. He was our
crazy.
coach, and so then it just kind of
Yeah.
didn't completely work out. I remember I tore up my leg and then
Yeah.
just came home and started working.
And that was it.
And MB stayed out there, I think, for a year playing, but
And then
for
started
whatever
playing
reason,
volley.
it didn't. I wanted to reference something. See these?
Hop champs? IHOP champs?
So this is
What's
some
that
good
say?
Catholic school ball
Yeah.
because IHOP's not far from here, and
Yeah.
St. Jerome was hosting a
Yeah.
tournament. That was Marley on my basketball team leading us to this championship.
Before I took
so
my
our
shot,
producer, Marley, yep.
Marley was
She had-
shooting, and I could tell she's obviously
Baller.
was a baller back in the day.
And she got that assist.
Did you play volley too?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
More hoops?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
good
so did
story
Michael
there.
Jordan.
Her high school coach.
What's that guy doing
She
now?
was clearly the best player.
I
It was like
thought.
Venice High, and he just forgot to put her name on the list.
Stop it.
And she got a little ticked, and she goes, fine, I'll just start with basketball. And she didn't play.
Instead of play volleyball. It was really stupid.
Oh, man. Can we go back in time?
Hilarious.
That's what I
Hilarious.
I have a lot of do-overs.
Same.
I'm trying to think, Geeter, where you and I might have first met, and it might have been when I was running over our little AAU beach players to get out on the AVP court, maybe?
Yeah, but we
You were in the
knew each other
VGC.
way before then, but
Yeah.
just didn't, all the connections with the Boley family and the
Yeah.
Lennon family. And, back in the club volleyball days, I worked with Tim Jensen for years.
They were Venice backyard.
Yeah.
Him and
Lee, his wife.
and somebody else. Who else was there? Jensen was there, and
Jared Elliott.
Jared Elliott. They
So
both played
Tim
in the
Jensen and
backyard.
Jared Elliott started Westside Volleyball Club.
Sure.
I ended up coming in when Jarrett moved on to college coaching and ran it with Tim.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'd always come across you then and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
when we first started to talk again was actually at Leonard Armato's event, I want to say, the World Series of Beach
World
Volleyball.
Series, yep.
And you were bringing over the AAU
Bringing over
championships
the-
that would be on
bringing
center
those.
court, and,
Yeah.
and I would announce them, which I always love to do.
No doubt. No doubt.
We had a funny story about that, me and you. I don't know
Yes.
if you remember. Millie's first ever beach volleyball tournament. She was 9 years old.
That's
Was
right.
the AAU championships. She
Millie.
lost 21-0
Mm-hmm.
to a girl named Izzy from Arizona who won that national championship
Sure.
that year. Fast forward to last year.
Do you remember
She
when you
beat
came
Izzy.
by? Oh, she did?
2 years later
Oh,
at the AAU tournament, and I went to the dad, and I was like, man, I just want, hey, I'm Geeter. He's like, oh, I know you are. We're going back forward. He's like, Izzy beat my daughter 21-0 a couple years ago. And he's like, that was you? He totally remembered.
Hilarious.
Izzy ended up winning in the finals against Millie in that same tournament, but she did beat her. So I've always told parents, like,
It can happen.
It can happen
Did
fast.
you also tell parents when we passed after that 21-0 what you said?
What'd I say?
It's something to the effect of 21 dick. You
Yeah.
can't even try and do that. And I was gassing.
I did say 21 dick.
And
Dude,
then,
I was.
and then- yeah.
Listen, my wife and Matt Boyce, we were playing with Matt Boyce's daughter Taylor. They didn't want to text me because I was over on the stage. They didn't. I was getting no updates. They didn't want to tell me it was 21-0.
And it's the 10 and unders.
Yeah.
And it's a kumbaya. at
Hey,
that
a year
point.
later, she lost in that championship
She said that-
match to Thais and the girl from Texas.
I called that game from the beach house.
Yeah, that was actually a really good game.
And it was a great game.
Yeah.
And I remember watching you
Layla.
were as much
Thais
as
and
fun
Layla.
to watch as the players.
Yeah, it was.
You were pacing a little bit.
Everyone was heckling me.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's tough, man, watching your own kid. I can announce anybody's games,
Yeah.
but it's tough when it's your own kid.
Yeah.
You know.
Speaking of which, born in what, 71 or 72?
Born in 71 in the Valley.
So 71.
Crespi High School, the pride of the Valley.
You know who won the NBA title in 71? The year you were born?
Well, the Knicks won it in 70. The Lakers won it in 72.
Very good.
Knicks won it in 73. They shouldn't have.
This one's a little off, but it makes sense once you know.
I know, because it's not the Celtics.
No.
And I just saw this the other day, and now it's going to drive me crazy. It wasn't the Bucks, was it? Was it Kareem?
It was.
Yeah,
Because
Kareem
he
and the
had
Bucks.
just won 68.
Yeah.
68, 69, 70 at UCLA or
Yes.
something like that.
It's amazing.
Or
And with
two-
the big
or
O.
1 year in,
By the
and
way,
then he
they
said, yeah.
also snapped the next year the Lakers' 33-game win streak.
That's right. It was them. That's that. See that picture to your right?
Oh, there it is.
So that's one of my favorite pictures because I got it at my favorite eatery,
Oh, my God,
which
how
is
cool
Der
is
Wiener
this?
Schnitzel.
Did you know Bill Sharman at all? I'm sure you guys
Yeah, I
did.
did.
What a great man.
What a great man. Yeah.
Oh,
And
by
I
the way,
was
it's
so
his
proud
idea
of
to do
that.
shoot-arounds.
Bill Sharman did a lot for the
Yeah,
sport.
he was a big-time innovator. People don't realize that.
You know something else about Bill Sharman? He was called up to the Brooklyn Dodgers as a minor leaguer, and he was on their bench when Bobby Thompson hit that shot.
By the way, I have heard that.
That's wild.
I've had heard that.
He got called
'Cause
up from AAA or something.
Their foundation with his wife Joyce, they honored James Worthy one night, and it was when we first started our network 7 years ago, and I ended up presenting for James, and I heard that very story. It's so
Isn't that
funny.
wild?
I know, that's wild.
When I was really little,
Shot heard around
it
the
was
world,
for
is that what they
that
called
for that team. I think 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
My godfather was really good friends with Bill Sharman, and so we get to go to Laker practices, and they'd have them at LMU.
Yeah.
That's where they practice sometimes, and we got to go to his house after, which is an apartment in the Marina Towers, and I go in his trophy room while the adults talked. And I mean, being 8, 9 years
Oh my
old.
God, it's the greatest trophy room of all time.
Yeah.
By the way, you know who's on this team? And I want to ask you this because Wayne Boley will tell you this. And my dad would have been 85 yesterday, by the way, if he was still alive. They both said the same thing, and I always told Wayne this. Keith Erickson was the greatest athlete they knew. Did you hear that growing up?
John Wooden said that about Keith Erickson.
So he was like all-world paddle tennis, like could have played for the Dodgers, like
Wild.
shortstop apparently, and like
Every time you hear
volley?
that, which made the backside of his 2-2-1 press click because Keith Erickson played in that.
Yeah.
So he could gamble and retreat, and it made it that much.
One of the nicest guys too.
Such a nice guy.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the Valley.
Yeah, grew
out
up in the
there.
Valley.
One of the things I think I heard, like you grew up around sports and so
Yeah.
forth, but the way you would you'd call your own play-by-play in your games, which that's me.
Who told you that? Did I tell you that?
That is my life. I do my research.
You did. I was gonna say.
But
Who told you
Geeter,
that?
that was my life. Like
Yeah,
I would.
I know,
And
man.
then you talked about having a front yard and a backyard venue.
Yes.
And I had the same.
Yeah.
I would only do certain sports in the backyard, and then some
So
in the front
true.
yard.
I had the same thing. And you know what's funny about that? I would do it. I had like a baseball league, a football league, and a basketball league. I had names written down. It was under my bed. I'll never forget. I would do drafts. I had made up guys. And when a neighbor would come over to play, I'd be so bummed because it'd be like 65, 62 in the fourth. And I would, I'm just going to the bathroom real quick. And I'd go and write it down like 3 minutes left, come outside, play. And I have to do that game over. What I did not know was when I got older, my mom, Lil, she's still alive, and the neighbor Dolly, who lived across the street, and Dolly would take care of us a lot. And my mom and Dolly they told me like when I was, I don't know, in college, they're like, oh, we watched you all the time. We'd always laugh to each other because you'd be talking during. I thought no one knew.
Mm-hmm.
They knew.
My mommy said
They knew.
Just watch and enjoy.
Yeah.
Now, were you on the roster as Chris McGee, or did you have a made up name for yourself?
That's a great question.
I always put myself into
No one's ever
the
asked me
game
that.
against other people.
Yeah, no one's ever asked me that. I remember the two best players in the league. One guy's name was Jim and the other was Washington. And I'm
Okay.
Washington. I don't know if I was watching Welcome Back Kotter or what was going
Yeah.
on, but I'm trying to remember if I would insert myself. Yeah, I was on the team, but I wasn't the best guy.
Okay.
Like Jim was the best player in baseball. Washington was the best player in hoops.
Okay.
Yeah, but they both play. You play multiple sports.
And how
Yeah.
did this draft work? Was there a commissioner?
No, it was like I had a bedspread of all NBA teams, so I would do this, and this, and then with baseball I would just do the same thing.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I grew
But
up-
football, like running on my front lawn and like just all of a sudden flying onto the
Falling.
ground, like the neighbors must have
Diving.
thought, who is this? Yeah. I mean, if there could only be video.
Throw it up.
Yeah.
Try to make a one-hand catch.
Totally.
Yeah. You know the game.
How far were we throwing it? Like 5 yards? I thought it was like a bomb.
Thought
but
it was.
You-
But you could practice a lot in your house on your
Yeah, on
couch,
couch.
or on your own bed diving, and then you just take it to the outside.
You know what's great? My brother's 5 years older, Matt. We would tell my parents horror stories when we were later in life, like past college, and we'd go bring girlfriends home, whatever. And my mom just, I'm like, I can't believe you're telling us. But we told them, we're like, when you guys would leave, like you'd see the car lights go out and gone. It was like clear the living room, carpet football on the knees, and fights and brawls, and I mean.
That's when I knew
That's
the
growing
boy.
up.
I knew my son was going to be a pretty decent player because we would play on our knees volleyball with like one of those
Yeah.
plastic balls you would
Yeah.
get in the supermarket, and he would tip over the coffee table, and that would be the net.
That'd be the net.
And then he play on his feet, but the rest of us has to play on our knees. And he drew brackets. I mean, he's
fun.
got to be
God, I
like
love
6.
that. God,
He
I
drew
love
out
that.
brackets so that we would
Love
go
that.
through these brackets.
When
It
did you
was
start
beautiful.
playing?
You know, it was always around in my family and in my backyard. You know, I always had a net up
See, that's the thing. You were around it
around
growing
it
up.
all the time,
Yeah.
and so
Which I think kids
so
are
always
now.
got touches on the ball and so forth. Now, your first entry, if I'm not mistaken, was at
Well, if you
your
remember-
elementary school or something, right?
Well, if you'll remember, high school volleyball, everyone didn't have it for boys until '86. I was a sophomore. I mean, you had it out here. Samo,
right.
Pally,
We started a team in '82,
Loyola.
my
Yes.
senior year.
Crespi didn't get it till my sophomore year, but my 8th grade teacher at a small little Catholic school, St. Catherine's, name was Teresa Gaudino.
St. Catherine of Siena.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
She played volleyball at Cal State Northridge. She was probably 25 years old. So she started a team so we could be in the Catholic League. And we went all the way to the semifinals. She taught us the right way to play.
So what year would that have been? 80?
Dude, 85, I want to say I graduated.
So
8th
right
grade.
up like
85.
Over there somewhere is about
Yeah.
a team from '86, and I was coaching by this time at St. Mark's School,
Oh, my gosh.
and there's a team up on that board that went
Yeah.
to the finals, and Bob Savertlik
That is amazing.
is in the picture. It's like over there, but anyways, Bob Savertlik came to be the celebrity guy that handed out medals,
That's awesome.
and so we went all the way to the finals, '86, and we set one kid the whole way around
Isn't that amazing?
because he could jump and he was good, and the rest of the kids weren't that
And
good.
we just like rotated around. There wasn't like a 5-1 setter coming in. It was like we
we had-
rotate all around and just
I
put
knew
you
the
in the middle,
sport,
you
so we had
set.
one setter,
Yeah.
and we set the one kid the whole time.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Yeah, so she was awesome, and she
So
taught
what
us the
was her
right
name?
way. Technically, Teresa Denton. She got married,
Love it.
so the married name was Denton.
And she played a little or something?
She played in Northridge, Cal State Northridge. She knew how to play. Her nephew actually played for Pepperdine. Guadino was the last name. Played for Marv, but she was awesome, and she kind of taught us how to play. And then fast forward 2 years, my sophomore year, and it's why I quit everything else except for hoops. Like it was football, basketball, baseball, at Crespi. And then my sophomore year, no more football, no more baseball. It was hoops and volleyball. And coach was Kevin Slattam, great guy, and another guy named Kenny Lynch who played with me at Northridge. We both made the varsity as sophomores.
Okay.
But still, it wasn't. I didn't play club. I loved it, but I didn't. It was basketball in the summer. So it wasn't like I was going to the beach and playing. So when I started Northridge, I was behind. Like Matt Unger was a year ahead of me. Guy had been setting a 5-1 his whole life. He played triple A's. Like I didn't know anything.
I was a pretty good player, and I had no idea that
No idea.
club sports even existed.
No idea.
I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
I just played. We play whatever sport was in season.
Yeah.
and especially for boys, didn't even know.
It's interesting, Denny. My probably best year setting of my life was after college. I was probably 25 and a couple years out and was playing in like Balboa Bay leagues that Charlie Brandt ran and was setting real well. And they sent a group of us to Colombia to represent the USA because it was a thing called the Pacific Ocean Games, and USA didn't want to send their A or B team. So they said, well, who just won the who just won USA Nationals, and it was the Paul Mitchell guys. So we went, and we won the gold medal, and I sat, and it was funny. I was like, God, I wish it was like I was finally good and there was nothing to play. I wasn't even playing anymore. It was just like for fun. You know what I mean? Like in college, I was learning the game.
Right.
And in a backup.
Hey guys, this is Marley, and I'm the producer. I finally got these guys to shut up for a second so we could do a commercial.
Of all the tequila joints in all the towns in all the world, you need to walk into Casablanca Restaurant in Venice, a proud sponsor of Sports Stories. When Carlos Haro Jr., the manager of Casablanca, was a young man, he made his mark in Venice at St. Mark's School, where he led his teams to several championships and was named the 1990 Athlete of the Year. As his coach in those days, whenever Carlos would score a hoop in basketball, I would immediately call for the team to play it again, Carlos. We even had one play called Here's Looking at You, Carlos, where we deceived the defense by making it look like we were going to give it to Carlos, then dropped it into Big Daddy Jeff Flores for the bucket. As time goes by, you'll want to round up the usual suspects and head to Casablanca Restaurant in Venice. Mention Sports Stories with Denny Lennon to either Carlos Sr. or Carlos Jr. and get a free dessert. Sports Stories in Casablanca Restaurant in Venice. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I think a lot of us...
So it's interesting.
Like I got... My best years were probably 19, 20 years old.
Think about it.
Could have used that in basketball team in high school.
I used to always say this when I started announcing beach volleyball. It always amazed me because back in those days, I just remember the four-man tour was died out, and a lot of my friends who were really good volleyball players at like 28 years old, so 4 years at the AVP, 5 years grinding 29, they would retire to go get real jobs. And I remember saying, like, man, imagine if MJ had to retire at 28. He had one ring. Like, it was just like, in our sport, that always bothered me that the best players, so many good players, had to go get jobs at 28 years old in their prime.
In their real estate.
You're nowhere near what you are at 28. That you are at you're 20. At 22, you're good, but you're not what you are at 28.
No way.
Mentally, it's where the physical and it all comes together. So that always bummed me out about our sport, and I learned it at a pretty young age. I watched all my friends retiring as I was announcing.
You played hoops at Crespi?
Yeah, played hoops at Crespi.
All CIF guy?
All CIF, all
No,
Valley.
you're not mixing up all CIF with all league, are you?
All league, all Valley, got it all down. I got hoops, volley.
Nice. Okay.
Went into the Hall of Fame.
What was your
I don't know
game
if I
in-
went into the Hall of Fame at Crespi because I ended up having a job on TV, or if
But all
Or
CIF
if the-
legit. Now,
I had it all.
Did the Carbino boys were at Crespi?
Carabino.
They were really good early 80s
Chris Nikovich, Joe Carabino, that was part of the team that
They were really
made
good.
me fall in love with basketball.
Same here.
Paul Muff was
You're
their
like
coach.
in 8th grade watching.
I was even younger.
Yeah.
And
That was
my
how I did
brother
it, yeah.
was going into Crespi, and Chris Nikovich was a sophomore. Joe Carabino was a senior. It was the best team I'd ever seen. They lost to like Kenny Fields and Verbum Day. I was
Kenny
at the game.
Fields.
I cried.
That team.
I know.
Cliff Pruitt used to bring up
Yes,
the ball.
I cried.
Cliff Pruitt was 6'9", bringing up the ball.
I cried.
That was
And they
that was the
lost.
best high school team I might have seen up until the Ball brothers were all together
Yeah,
at Chino Hills.
Chino Hills.
Right? But
Yep.
that Verbum Day team was something else. And I was at St. Bernard, and we were really strong.
Yeah.
For a number of years. And Crespi, we're in the same league.
Yeah.
And so those it's just fun. It's so fun when the gym's packed.
Jim's packed. St. Bernard's actually beat Crespi in an unbelievable game when I was a freshman at Westchester High School. And it was a semifinal or quarterfinal. St. Bernard's had some unbelievable teams.
Really good teams.
Verbum Day had some great teams. St. Anthony's.
Long Beach.
Yep, had
Yep.
some great teams back in that day.
Those are fun days. And you know the player that really lit it up for me was Leon Wood. And
Leon Wood?
He was playing at St. Monica.
Yeah, Leon
and
Wood.
there was no three-point line, or
Yeah.
else he would have put the state scoring record.
I know. Think about that.
out
Well, it's
of
funny,
reach.
now that LeBron is only 45 points behind Kobe, moving into third place all time, so it'll probably happen Saturday night in Philadelphia. We were looking at Kareem yesterday with 356 points, and you're thinking, Kareem had what, a couple threes in his career?
Yeah.
He did that with no three. He wasn't shooting threes. Karl Malone, second. Karl wasn't shooting threes.
No.
So pretty amazing to think how many buckets those guys got.
You know, just on the basketball, Michael Jordan always gets the nod as the greatest, and I got it. Now LeBron's getting into that
Yeah.
conversation. But I always fight a little bit for Magic
Me
because
too.
of how he pass
Me
the ball.
too.
But I'm always upset that Kareem's never in that argument.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're not alone. You know who?
He's
You know
put
who
the
that bothers?
scoring thing so far out of reach.
You know who that bothers? Guys who played with Kareem.
Yeah, like big game.
It drives Big Game James crazy. Now, Big Game played with Jordan as well. He tells some great stories. They won a
Oh, that's
title
right,
together at
North
North Carolina. Jordan's
Sure.
a freshman. But it's just it's interesting. Was it because it's not a sexy pick? Like, people don't really know how good he was. He wasn't an outgoing personality.
Right.
But
didn't
by
get
the
that
way, he's
media in
written
his
13
day.
books or whatever. So you know what I mean? But, like, the media didn't love him back then because he was tough to get to know. He was guarded. And if you know his story and you've watched it on HBO, then you
can
know why.
understand why.
And it's silly that, I mean, they outlawed the dunk, basically, right? Well, I mean, Kareem
'Cause of him.
was – Kareem –
And you know that only set him onto his list as being the greatest scorer because he learned to get such touch around the rim without
around-
having to dunk.
I mean, you cannot – it's funny, like, people just say, well, why don't you learn the sky hook because it's the most indefensible shot? But here's the thing, like, there's footwork to that shot. There's technique to that shot. And there's so much repetition that goes in that shot. Guys don't want to put in that kind of work. Kareem, it's insane to me that he doesn't get that love. By the way, he played in a day where guys didn't play 20 years, and he lasted 20 years. He won, 2 titles after 36 years old. He's in the top for blocks, for rebounds, for points all time. 6 MVPs.
And throw
6 titles.
and
People
remember,
forget he's got a title.
He spent
Like you
4
mentioned
years
Milwaukee.
in college. He
Yeah.
spent 4 years in college. He didn't get that early start like
I know.
a lot of the greats did.
My dad went to a game, back in the day. I'm sure you guys have all talked about this at some point. The freshmen weren't allowed to play varsity.
Oh, yeah.
So that UCLA team was like number 2 in the country, and Kareem beat him as a freshman. My dad was at the freshman varsity game.
That's an awesome game to be at. Think
Think about that. He just walked right in.
Defending champs.
I know. So
And that team, I think, went undefeated that Kareem beat.
I listen.
It's wild.
I think I'll always say as I look up at Jordan, listen, I'm fine giving Jordan the GOAT because I don't know. He changed. He brought the game global. He came at the right time. It was the perfect storm. The internet, everything was starting to start. The world was advancing, and I think he was a big part of basketball on the global stage, and so was Magic. The 6-0 in titles is pretty incredible, and just the Nike, everything that came with him. But you better put Kareem at 2, or you better have him on that Rushmore. And I just think it's wrong to not. It bothers me. And the game is different now. Numbers are different now. So you can't compare. I mean, LeBron's in year 17, never had a major injury. I mean, Jordan done played, 13, 14 years.
Sure.
Like 2 of his best years, he's out playing minor league baseball.
They talk about the Dream Team 92.
Yeah.
But I was followed closely that 84 team.
That 84 team. Bobby Knight.
Because Leon Wood was it said an Olympic
Didn't Barkley get
assist
cut?
record.
There's famous guys that got cut. Hall of Famers got
Bobby
cut.
Knight said no more dunking because Barkley was dominating the trials.
Yeah.
And on the very next transition, Barkley dunked and looked
And that
right
was-
at night.
that's
and that
so
was
funny.
like his last time.
That's it.
Yeah.
That team had Ewing,
They had everybody.
MJ.
I loved that team. I thought was
Loved that team too. I'm with you. 92 is always special because it was the first dream team. But if you picked a best all-time Olympic team before they were pros, I don't know how you would compare to 84.
You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see how many future Hall of Famers were on that team. There's a few. So you finish up at Crespi, you go to Cal State Northridge. How
Yeah,
come?
so I was being recruited at Crespi for basketball.
Okay.
And I actually quit volleyball my senior year for
Really?
one day.
Oh.
And I always credit Kevin Slattum, the coach. I'll never forget this. Paul Muff, who passed away in 1994, was Joe Carabino's coach. He was I was his last varsity basketball player. The last MVP he ever gave was to me, so I always take a lot of pride in that. Paul was really helping me get into colleges to play hoops. So I was being recruited by a lot of the D3s and D2s, and LMU was the only D1 that really I took a visit and said hello, and it was more of a walk-on opportunity. So I was really into trying to play basketball, and I just couldn't focus on volleyball. And I went to Coach Slattum, and I said, Coach, I think I'm gonna go for this college basketball thing, and I want to thank you for everything. But we were tight. Like he was a great man, and he was like, Kevin was like, take a week. Take
Smart.
a week and let's talk. One day. And I don't remember why it was. That day I went home, I was bored. Whatever it was, I went back to him the next day and said I'm in. And Kenny Lynch got recruited, and I got recruited with Kenny to Northridge, and I met John Price, came home and told my parents, I'm going to Northridge. They're like, hold on. All this work, they're sending me to classes to get the ACT up. Yeah, everything. Everything. I'm going to Northridge. John Price, I met him.
Jumping Sports.
I met my
somewhere
soulmate.
else. Oh, wow. Smart coach, too, because,
Totally.
the mind of an athlete, at least a top athlete, you have to understand that
Yeah.
and let that take its course and then hopefully bring it back on. But if you're the coach and you say, make up your mind now, or this door is closed the second you go out, if you got a good athlete on your hand who's got a strong mind, they'll walk out that door.
Denny, I'm sure you would feel the same way in your life. You've probably had a lot of, fortunate circumstances and people that backed you. When I look back on my career in TV, but my career growing up in sports, and I mentioned Teresa Denton, Kevin Slattum, Paul Muff, John Price, my college coach, I've been really lucky. Like, those people took care of, they put me in good positions. I think that helped me. And it's the same thing with TV, like Steve Simpson and Tom Fuhrer taking a liking to me at Fox Sports, and John Hefner and all these guys. And then it's, Billy Mack and Jim Watson, broadcasters like taking you under their wing, and Lou Riggs, who probably taught everybody that's ever been a broadcaster. All these people put you in a position.
And it sets you up for success later.
Yeah.
Especially, I think your experience at Cal State Northridge, as I was looking into that, you learned to be a team player there.
I had to be. Listen, I was a star like everybody else when you go to college. I was a star in Little League and a star on my basketball team and volleyball team when I was at Crespi. And then I go, and I was not a star at Northridge. And I'm a role player at best, a backup. But what was interesting, I'll never forget, I had this picture, and we all used to get in the stance. We'd be down in the stance when we needed to decide out. And I remember I had it on my wall for a long time. It was just a little Polaroid, but it was me and the 6-7 guys that were down the line. And I remember showing this to people later going, okay, that guy was the CIF Player of the Year. That guy was the City Player of the Year at Chatsworth. This guy was the player. And I'm like, everybody on this bench is all world. You know what I mean? So all everything. So that's what I think it helped me coaching-wise for sure. Understand that role player, that bench player, what they mean to a team. I was voted captain at Northridge, and I wasn't even a starter. That was, in my sophomore year, junior year. I guess when I look back, I go, I must have been doing something right.
And that's where you met Matt Unger?
Yeah, so Matty O was a year ahead of me. Coley Kyman was my year, and the three of us were best friends, still are today. And Matt actually got me the job basically at the AVP because he was playing. So Matt was a huge – and by the way, Matt and I would go watch film my freshman and sophomore year at Price's house and stuff in office, and Matt's the one who taught me everything about setting.
Matt, he used to play in
known him forever.
The backyard championships. He went by Matt Anger there.
Yeah.
Matt Anger.
Matty O is a fiery –
He was fiery.
You got to remember, so Matt, for those people that don't know, volleyball, Matt was a small setter. From Pali High School, and a phenomenal player, and was told by his brother was 2 years older, went and played for Kenny P at Santa Barbara. Kenny said, Matt, you're never going to play college volleyball. You're too small. Didn't get scholarship offers. Was just going to go play beach because no one wanted him. And John Price called him like 2 months before school started and said, love to have you, love to give you a scholarship. And it, you know what, John saw something. And that guy, without him, we don't go to the finals. Matt was location-wise as good as any setter. Canyon, good as all of them.
So you go to the finals in 93. 93.
Yeah.
And that's when 4 teams would make the finals.
Yeah.
And then it would be like a round robin?
No, you know what we did
what
then?
Would it be?
I'll tell you what we do. So it's funny. It changed all through my years. My freshman year, it was called the WEVA, and we had an 8-team playoff, and the winner got to go to the Final Four as the West Coast rep, the winner of that playoff bracket. The second place finisher would be voted in, they said, as the 4th team.
Right.
It was the first year of rally scoring in the 5th game only. They put I don't know if you know this, they put a cap on it for only 1 year. 1990, there was a cap.
Okay.
We lost to USC, who won the national championship, 17-16 in the 5th.
And
we served. They cited out
17.
Through Neil Kaufman's hands. Leon DeRocher put it through his hands on a D. And they won 76. There was no. Yeah, can you imagine that?
So that'll never.
That game's not. I always tell Brian Ivey that game's not official.
They'll be the only 17-16 final ever in the history of.
So that was
volleyball.
The quarterfinals, and they went on to win the national championship. The next year they changed it to the 5th game. You have to win by 2. So it was regular scoring, side out scoring until it got to the 5th game, and then it was rally. And we went. So we lost our first year to SC. Then we won that next year, went to the second round, lost. Then we went to our 3rd year. We beat Long Beach State, who was number 1 in the nation, lost to Stanford to go to the Final Four, and then finally in our 4th year, we went all the way to finals. Back then, so we played Penn State first. UCLA put Ohio State. And what's funny is to become friends with all these guys later in life and play on the same Paul Mitchell teams and beach and all this stuff. You learned how they did and how we did it. We didn't know. We had never been to the Final Four. We spent all week on Penn State. All week, and we drubbed them. Alskates and them never looked at Ohio State one time. All they did was work on Northridge. And they had a better plan, and they came in. We were at Pauley, by the way.
At Pauley.
Sealy and them kicked our ass. They were just too good. But I look at that team now, and I'm like, of course they beat us. They had like 7 Olympians. I mean, Stein was on the bench. They had Nygaard, Eric Sullivan, Kevin Wong, all Olympians.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sealy.
You still remember that game?
March 8th, 1993.
Isn't that wild?
That's the day I started drinking. No, I'm just kidding. I always say that. But, yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting how accelerated athletes or almost any athlete, you certainly win. You remember your wins, but it's those championship losses.
Dude, you remember.
That stick with you.
Remember.
I was interviewing Jerry West at the school.
Jerry's tortured.
And he goes, there's not a day in my life I don't think about the 1959 NCAA finals because West Virginia lost to Cal.
By the way, NCAA.
He goes, not a day in my life.
Oh, I know.
And he was MVP of the Final Four, just like he was in '69 of the NBA Finals. I think he's the only guy to ever be on the losing team.
Think about this. Think of all the losses to the Celtics. Every single one of them. If he wins 3 of the 8, he's already an all-time. But you know what I'm saying? It's different. Like I'll never forget 85. It's funny. I don't know if you've heard this from guys but when I started working at the network is when I really realized it because Byron and James, they all said the same thing. The ring they all covet the most is 85. Pat Riley will say it. Vidi will say it.
Exercise the demon.
Because of what it meant to everyone before them. And I'll remember from my dad how much it went. I remember beating the Celtics and how great it was, but 84 was more gut-wrenching than ever. Like, James threw the ball away in Game 2 to go up 2-0. Like, he still talks about it.
If Worthy didn't pull Rambis back, Rambis would have.
You know what I asked him?
would have been.
You know what I asked him? The other day they're playing the Celtics, and I said it's a fish too. I said, what are your 2 greatest memories? Boston. He goes, losing in 1984 and then winning in 85. Because in 84, those guys, they don't forget. And James is like, that was my 4th ring. We were going up 2-0 to go home. We would have been up 2-0 at home. So you goosebumps talking about, all those guys, man, it's it's pretty amazing.
We're talking about you learning to be a team player at Northridge and stuff, but you also were, I think, in training to be who you are today as an announcer. Because what did you form, the Matamaniacs?
Matamaniacs back in the day.
Instead of the Matadors.
Yeah.
And people would rally
you really
around
do your research. That was Coley Kyman as well and Matt Unger. And you know how that started was we lost a bet my freshman year that the coaches made. Basketball, Pete Cassidy, John Price, they made a bet. They said we'll play in a softball game against each other in the fall before the seasons had started. And then the losing team has to throw a party for the other team and dress up for one of their games. We had a lead going into the last inning, the 9th, and lost, which, by the way, still haunts me to this day. But it was meant to be because the basketball team wouldn't have thrown a great party like we did, and they wouldn't have been able to do what we did. We then, fast forward 2 months, throw the best disco party in the history of Cal State Northridge in that night. So we were all in our disco gear. We went to the game.
Okay.
And I just let it. We just ran in and started doing cheers and all this goofy stuff. And it was Matamaniacs were born. They still do it now.
They still do it now?
They still do it now.
And do they call it Matamaniacs?
Yes.
That is.
Athletes still do it.
That's legacy.
Right?
That's legacy. That's better than a statue. Oh, that's awesome.
Better than a statue. That's
awesome. Beautiful. Join us next Thursday for part 2 of Life is Sweeter with Geeter. Now it's time for an installment of As Time Goes By, where we get to know Carlos Haro Jr. of Casablanca Restaurant in Venice 1 minute at a time. Remember, if you mention sports stories with Denny Lennon to either Carlos Sr. or Carlos Jr. while you dine at Casablanca, you get a free dessert. Now, let's play it again with Carlos Jr. Carlos, our proud sponsor. Can you tell me a little bit about your family, and their connection to Los Angeles, West Side, Mexican food and the restaurants, how it relates to the Rodriguez family and Gilbert El Indio and the like?
Sure, no problem. So my grandfather was the first one who moved to the West Side, and not quite the West Side. He was right around La Brea. He opened his first Mexican restaurant, and it lasted about 2 years, and then lost his lease. Found this other place in Venice, and at that time, nobody wanted to live in Venice. and it was like the 1950s. It's kind of a town. He found this place and opened what was called La Cabana, which is still there, and Lincoln and Rose, and behind it was an auto shop. So if what you see now, La Cabana is the full lot, but it used to be just half the lot, and the other half was an automobile shop.
Oh, wow.
And then he ended up purchasing this, and all three, which is my uncle Paco and my uncle Gilbert's, all came. They were all there. They all worked in the restaurant, and they would work sometimes at La Cabana, but then they would work at other restaurants. And little by little, they started kind of saving money, or my aunt would work there, and they all saved money, and eventually they all started kind of opening their own restaurants, being that there was Paco's Tacos, and then there was Gilbert's, and then Casablanca were the four. La Cabana, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So those were kind of how they all got it. So they were all three of my uncles who they still, if you go to Paco's, you'll still see my Uncle Paco, and my Uncle Gilbert just passed away, and my grandfather passed away, but the brothers, siblings, they're all still working at the restaurant forever.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Original images by Sienna Lennon Photography. Sports Stories is produced by Marley Rice, edited by Bob McCall, and researched by Teresa Dolan. Additional staff include Christine Jinbo, Jake Downey, Ray Castro, and Buck Magic Lennon.
Hey, I'm Conor McGregor. If you like my fights, you'll like this podcast. It's great. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. A new episode every Thursday.
Check it out, Buck.